Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Minority and Mental Health, our virtual series tonight. It's all about men's health awareness. I'm your host, Brian the Lion, along with my brother, Porkchop. What's up, Chop?
How you feel, man? It's a pleasure to be here with you, Ryan. Doing
Yes,
this
indeed.
in June, being, Mental Health Month. We got to do it for the fellas because, we always the one to say we don't need no help. I don't want to talk to nobody. I don't need no
Right.
therapist. But guess what, brothers? You do.
Absolutely do. We need a whole lot of help. And this month, you said it, Chop, Men's Health Month is all about encouraging our brothers, all the men, all the boys to get their minds right, get their body right. We're just trying to get right all in general, all right?
Right,
And tonight we have some great guests on our panel to help us with some great tips, some great advice. Nick Mosby, Baltimore City Council President, should be joining us a little bit.
Yes.
We have Quinton Askew from 211 Maryland. Hey, Q, what's going on, brother? We also have Mr. Kirk Baltimore, psychotherapist from Sheppard Pratt. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for being here with us this evening. We already know that men's health is one of those taboo things, man. We don't talk about it. We don't deal with it. You know what I mean? That old stigma, toughen up. We don't even like to talk about it.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we have this platform this evening to talk about some things because we all know that men or not, we need some help.
Yes.
Okay. When it's time for help, we need help. Yep. What you say, Q?
I said absolutely. Every day.
Now, Q, let's start with you because you're from 211 Maryland. Can you tell everybody what exactly is 211 Maryland?
Absolutely. So we are the state's, easy 3-digit number to call when you need access to any particular resources. And so those resources could be anything. I don't know what I need, or I just need to connect someone to find out about a local, pantry in the community, or, I want to connect to a behavioral health specialist or a therapist. I want to connect to Sheppard Pratt. So, particularly if you dial 211, we have, call centers that are across the city that will be able to answer your call and say, what do you need? And so we'll find out your zip code and be able to connect you right to a service right in your community. And so it's 24/7, 365.
All right.
Wow.
And Kirk, for those that might not know what Sheppard Pratt is, that live in the city or, live outside the city, what is Sheppard Pratt?
Sheppard Pratt is it's what aren't we? We are a hospital. We are mental health outpatient. We serve adults. We serve children. We have day programs all over. My particular clinic is in the one out in Timonium, but we have clinics throughout Maryland. And we're seeing a lot more, locations of Sheppard Pratt and, different variations of it out there. And so we're one of the leaders, especially like in this area, in terms of mental health treatment and mental health services.
All right.
That's what's up. Now, Q, you talked about 211 and it being a service for the community. Now, there's also another number, 988. What's up with that number?
Absolutely. So 988 is a federal number. It was originally a 1-800 number, but we have it here in Maryland. So it's another 3-digit number that specifically helps with, anyone who's going through suicide or crisis, or really just, dealing with anxiety or any other issues. They want to talk to a crisis counselor. And so just like 211 is for, I need help with food. I need help with, rent. 988 is really, I'm not feeling well. I'm stressed out. Something is going on, or I may be suicidal, or something has happened in my family. And so you dial 988 24/7, you're able to connect with a trained crisis therapist to be able to talk you through your issues, to find out exactly what's going on, to be able to connect you to local resources. And so, they switched that 10-digit number to an easy 3-digit number, so to make sure that folks can connect. And so definitely, if anyone is, and that's anything from a youth to an adult, you can dial 988 here in Maryland. You're connected 24/7 to a crisis therapist.
Kirk, how can a man know, what are the signs that we would know if we need therapy or not?
Yeah. I think that it's been a bit of a challenge, especially for, Black men and men of color, just because of how we have been raised and the examples that we've seen before. It's very challenging to be able to all of a sudden be able to just check in with yourself and say, hey, I think I need mental health therapy. But I do think that one thing that comes up, or a few things that come up quite a bit, are usually in like depressed mood. Are there like any changes like in appetite? Is there like this persistent worrying, or are there constant feelings of nervousness about certain things? Things that historically Black people and people of color have been told, we kind of press through, and that gives us resilience, and that we're supposed to kind of just walk through these things. But I think that with us being able to with one another, and check in with ourselves, we find that like, hey, I think that maybe I need to, maybe I should be talking to somebody.
Okay.
Now, I want to get both you gentlemen's take on this because, again, June is Men's Health Month. And, we talked about the stigma of men. But what do you think, like, the current state of men's health is in the United States? Do you think it's something that we definitely need to be putting more on billboards, it needs more attention? How do you guys personally feel about it?
Man, I think we made some progress, but I think we still got a lot more to go. I think, especially like you said, with the stigma, I think, we trying to do a lot better. We having conversations. You see all the shows that come on the barbershops when they talking about mental health. We got a lot of our athletes talking about it now, which I think is helpful. But I think, in our communities, I think we're still struggling a little bit to have those conversations, whether that's ego or whether that's just, I don't know how to say what I need to say. But I think, we just need to be a little bit more educated about having a conversation with just our homeboys and our friends and family members. But I think, what I've seen, the stigma is really, we're doing a lot with getting rid of the stigma. But I think just really locally, we got to find a better way to communicate with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said.
Yeah.
How about you, Kurt? How you feeling about men's health in this country, right? Especially in our communities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that the billboards and the things that we're seeing like on surface level appear to be very good. Like we're seeing a lot more, and we're seeing celebrities talking about it on, different shows and things like that. Like all of that sounds good, but we still lack the substance behind like mental health and what it means that Black people get connected to it and men get connected to it. I think that with a lot of things in society, like we go into these trends, into these fads that like it sounds good, but like when it comes down to us actually seeking it out and doing it and doing the work, then it's a little bit different than just the happy-go-lucky, just get a therapist or mental health. And so I think that like Quinton was saying, that there has to be more like substantive like conversation about mental health, what it means, what it entails, because there's a lot of expectation going into therapy as a Black man, and oftentimes it's easy for someone to say, hey, I'm ready for this person to fix me, and when in fact therapy is a lot of processing and a lot of reframing and a lot of just kind of confessing into to some degree. And so I think that with that we kind of miss the mark in terms of like how much actually goes on in therapy and how hard it can be and how difficult it can be. And so I think that we've done a great job with the advertising of it and the decorating it, but I think that more needs to be done on just what all that entails, like on the back end.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys, hear this a lot, but Kirk probably can speak to it more. Just even us talking about the trauma, right? Just our trauma we grew up with and seen, and whether we've had friends that passed away or been killed, or abuse in the home and things of those nature, right? That's trauma that we've dealt with, that I think we just kind of consume it and never talk about, right? And we kind of express or live that stuff out. And so I think that's also a big part of, our mental health of us, not addressing.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's I've been in therapy for maybe 2 years, 2 going on 3,
Mm.
and I feel like sometimes it's not enough. Like to go to therapy is one thing, and now I'm on. I hope I'm saying it right. Both of y'all can help me. Is it sertraline or sertraline?
Sertraline.
Sertraline. I'm on sertraline, and now I got a spiritual advisor. And is there anything out there that you could tell our audience? What can we do other than therapy for right now? Like just to get the brain working and to get into the therapy mode.
Some things that I particularly journaling, right? I think really journaling has helped. Some people use other stress related things, whether it's yoga, exercising, and some of those things. Music is a big thing for me. That kind of helps alleviate some of that stress. And when you just can't take it anymore, like, let me turn this song on. I need something to kind of relax myself. But I'm a big fan of, let me write it out before I act it out. And that's one of the things that I've been trying to do.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kurt.
Yeah. I also think that there really is no wrong or right way to get more, just exposure to whatever it is that you're trying, to whatever wholeness looks like for you. And I think therapy is so unique that it's kind of like tethered to everyone's individual experience.
Yeah.
So for you, I mean, coming into therapy and you having a spiritual advisor, those things resonate with you. Not everybody wants a spiritual advisor. For some people, it may be co-occurring disorders where there's mental health and substance use. And so maybe it's checking in with a AA group, or if it's, checking in with a sponsor, things like that. Like, it can be different. I just think that what's a little bit challenging is that there's like this level of intentionality that comes along with, as we go into therapy, that we're able to kind of get like what we want from it. It's not always like easily accessible. And so like a lot of these things they don't really manifest until like we're in there. And it's just like, I think I could use a spiritual advisor. I think I could use a peer support specialist. For veterans, peer support specialists have been coming up a bit more and more. So maybe talking with someone who has gone through gone through similar experiences, things like that. So I feel like there really is no right or wrong, like answer to that. It's just really kind of relating to whatever experience that person is looking for, and whatever wholeness looks like for them.
Right. Somebody could like walk, somebody might could go swimming, no matter what it is, as long as you mentally getting your thoughts together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if it brings you a little bit of peace, man, that's important.
Yeah,
for sure. Sitting here and we're talking, men's health, and it's to me, so important. It's so crazy that, like, even Men's Health Month, when they advertise it, they don't talk about the mental aspect of it. It's all physical. It is all get your body right, eat better. It's nothing really, about getting your mind together and getting your mind right. And I know mental health has been a kind of a new wave that's been the last few years. People have been getting more familiar with it and getting more on board with it. Do you guys think that mental health is something, like, why is it so taboo? Like, even in the last couple of years we've been getting on board, people are still like, I'm okay. But like, what is the hurdle for men when it comes to mental versus physical? We'll go to the doctor when the arm hurts, or we can't play basketball or something, or can't shoot dice or something. You go.
Damn, that's nice.
I was trying to get both spectrums, but what do you guys think? It's gonna really take to get mental awareness, kind of like running parallel next to physical education or physical awareness.
I think part of it is sometimes we might not even know how to explain it, right? Or
Right.
just what it is. I think because until I particularly understood what the words to attach to it of how I was feeling and seeing others, I really didn't know what to call it. It was just I was angry, or it was just I just don't want to be around people. And so I think the more we can kind of be educated and kind of educate ourselves a little bit about just terminology and just particular words that we can attach to how we feel, I think that kind of helps alleviate it, because I'm just frustrated just not knowing what's wrong with you. Right. And so, and Kirk probably sees that a lot. It's
Absolutely.
It's tough. And especially, going, Chop, you mentioned going to the therapist, right? That's probably the most scariest thing. I remember, first time I was doing it was like, why, when I went, it was like, well, what am I going to say? Like, I'm not going, I may have canceled the 3 or 4 appointments where I went the first time,
Right.
because, it's not something that we've done. Or, you grow up and they say like, you don't need no therapist. Like, what are you going to a therapist for? That's not what you need. And so I think, just really finding the words to put to how we feel it and being able to express it is I think is a big thing.
And I feel like I'm gonna be in therapy for a long time. Now that I've started it, I feel like it's a part of my life.
Yeah.
Like it will be, because things change, people change, situations gonna change throughout life, and I just feel like it's gonna be me. And big shout out to Dr. Mercer. That's my therapist.
Now, I'm going to ask you this too now, Chop. Now, how did you go about finding your therapist? Because I know
My
sometimes, what was that?
My wife,
Mm-hmm.
Asia Doswell, has done more for me mentally than she's ever done, like anybody. And without her, my first year, I was skeptical like you, Q. I went and I was like, I was apprehensive at first. Yeah. But then the spiritual aspect of going to therapy started, and I felt like the devil was like, oh, yeah, we got him now. Now we got him. Mm-hmm. And it took almost within another year of back and forth in therapy. You go, you don't, you go, you don't, till it clicks and be like, yeah, I need it. This is what I need. Because I don't know because. I just know I need to be there. That's all I know. Right. It's like going to buy some New Balance. I need it. I gotta go get it.
Two things I took from that, Chop, real quick, man. And one was support system. Like, you had somebody in your circle that cared enough to help, right? Mm-hmm. That's important. I think that's very important for a lot of folks who have people that love them. Help.
But it's probably thousands of women that tell their man, boyfriend,
to go there and they won't go.
You need to go to therapy, and the dudes be like, nope. Mm-hmm. I feel like for men, it gotta be a moment in a man's life. He gonna have to be the first one to say it. The next person gotta be his homeboy, kind of, sort of like, yo, come on, I'm going to therapy. And then after I started going to therapy, I didn't know how many of my friends started opening up about their therapy, So I feel like you got to be the right guy around you in your circle too. Not saying that the ladies don't, but fellas, if your friends are going, you might need to go. God talks in different ways and through different people.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Because we can normalize it, right? Because now our friends are going to homeboys, right? We're not thinking it's just us. Right. That's so true. It's not just us. I think that's really big. I mean, like Kirk, when you're talking and meeting with folks, is it I think do you still hear that it's really tough for folks really just to articulate and just, as you said, really speak to what it is they're dealing with?
Yeah, I definitely feel that way. And I think more what's been a pattern that I've been seeing, there seems to be, once they engage in that therapy, they seem to be really surprised that they feel as affirmed and validated from their experiences. Like, hey, they're actually talking to me. They're actually validating how I'm feeling. They're, helping me to be able to process these things. I'm not wrong. And oftentimes that's like a big theme. Like, when it comes down to just us Black people just feeling seen and feeling heard and feeling accepted for how we're feeling, that validation that we get from that is just something that we haven't really experienced a lot of. And so that's what I kind of find very fascinating, just like about therapy. I see that like a lot of people are apprehensive about it. I've had people come in and say, you know, I didn't really take this seriously until afterwards, you know, and it's just like, I want to come back, you know, and it's very telling, you know. I think just through how dedicated and how their whole presence shows up differently, you know, over time in therapy.
Well, we have a question from Floyd A. Carter Jr. Do you guys believe undiagnosed mental health and the use of illicit drugs contribute to the current crisis our youth here in Baltimore are going through with violence and criminal behavior?
I'll throw that at Kirk to Sheppard Pratt. He probably has the best response for that one.
I do think that it's, you know, very difficult to kind of pinpoint one answer to a lot of different things. I mean, obviously there are a lot of different factors, but I certainly do believe that it can possibly be a good explanation for a lot of the things that we're seeing, especially like in the inner city. I think that I think that we should look at mental health in the same light as we view just general health care, and mental health should be regarded as that. And I think that this kind of goes back into a question, Ryan, that you were talking about, like why is this so difficult for us to be able to address? And that is, on a macro level, on a policy level, mental health has not been given the special attention that healthcare has been given over these years. I think we've been able to see more funding and more policy changes over these more recent years. And I think that we're starting to see more therapists and more therapists of color coming out and, you know, working and stuff like that. But we have to recognize that for years, I mean, we weren't really seeing that same attention and that same level and that same funding. And I think that with that comes the stigma that, like, well, if this is going on, then it's the person's problem. There is no mental health about this. This person is just crazy, so to speak, or this person is, just damaged goods. And I think that with the Affordable Care Act, you know, we began to see how there was a push for more addictions, for more funding towards addictions. And so as we look at substance use, now we're starting to see a bit more and how that's tethered into mental health and, you know, co-occurring disorders, and we start to see a different approach to it. So yes, I think it's very possible that a lot of the things that we've seen in the inner cities have been a result, perhaps, of undiagnosed mental health, and also combination of substance use. But, you know, it's very difficult to say, but I do think that there, you know, sparks that conversation about how can mental health be taken seriously overall to give it its proper place in healthcare.
So
I find myself smoking way more weed than I have been. Is that a problem? Would you think that's a problem of?
For any medicine, I guess. For any medicine that I suggest that you probably are diagnosed with. I mean, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, there are a lot of factors, you know, when it comes down to, you know, taking psychotropic medications. And I think that with mixing with substance use, alcohol, anything like that, there can be serious side effects with kind of mixing the two, you know. And so I just think that it's something that, you know, you kind of work out with your psychiatrist. If it's something that you feel is a part of your daily routine or your weekly routine, I think that it's best to just consult with, you know, your prescriber with that one.
Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, our Minority and Mental Health virtual series is all about mental health awareness, brought to you tonight by 211 Maryland, Sheppard Pratt, our guest, Quinton Askew, Kirk Baltimore. And we want to say, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you want to share, please do so.
There go a question right there for you,
Yep. We have a question from Wasted Wellness. What can women do to aid our men, friends, partners, spouse to talk, feel, and be heard?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think, one, really providing that safe space, right? And I think kind of just reinforcing that it's okay to share feelings. A lot of times I think we speak, we don't feel like we're being heard. We don't feel like, somebody's listening to us. But I think, it's just giving us that space to kind of communicate and really asking us, how do we feel, right? It's rarely that we sometimes get that. Like, how are we, how was your day today, right? How are you feeling? It's this thing that I use now, even with the kids, coming home from work is like, I'm at 70% today. I'm at 50% today, right? So they know, like, hey, I don't have 100% to give today, but it's just that kind of awareness that, this is where I'm at, right? This is just reality of. And so, if you need something from me, I only got 40% to give today. And maybe that might drive that conversation of, what's going on. But it's just another way to kind of communicate that, either something's not all the way there or I need some help with something. But I think, really just providing that safe space and just, asking questions from us.
Honest communication. I like that. That's a big tip right there.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Chad.
Tracy said, would you say with someone that is not being diagnosed with a mental health problems can come from physical ailments that hasn't been diagnosed? I guess that's for you, Mr. Baltimore.
Can I see the question one more time? Did it say has been or has not been diagnosed? From physical ailments that has been diagnosed? Absolutely. I think that we really underestimate trauma when it comes down to like changes in lifestyle, especially at the result of anything that deals with like our somatic physical health. I think that with whether it is diagnosis of cancer or just complications over, in general, just over a span of years, can easily, bring on symptoms of a depressed mood or anxiety, which are very common just in just a lot of other different contexts, but especially when it comes down to complications with medicine or physical ailments. Absolutely. It certainly can. And I think that in those cases, you may find that if somebody has even like progressed, and have embraced like healing and things have been working out for them, it can still be an area of trauma for them, like just kind of getting the news with that, what it felt like to get that news, kind of going back to that place of feeling hopeless or feeling helpless or feeling like you didn't know how things were going to turn out. That's trauma, and potentially, re-traumatizing as you walk into a doctor's office or a hospital from that point on. So certainly it can, and it certainly does probably contribute to a lot of our like unconscious as we think about mental health treatment and how we're actually doing. I mean, if you've gone and seen someone, supported someone who was sick and going into a hospital or just seeing a procedure done or anything like that, like it stays with us too. And so how much more would it be for them as well?
Big facts. Now, mental health, physical health, men, boys, in both of your fields, do you see a lot more trauma in youth, like recently, or do you think it's kind of been, stable, it's kind of, within that gray area it's always been, or do you think our youth are dealing with a lot more pressure and stress in recent times?
I think, in our work, we have seen, calls and requests for services, especially with our suicide prevention services in youth, rise, right, and go up, which could be looked at both ways, right? It could be looked at, folks are reaching out for help at a young age, but then it could also look like, our youth are in trouble in a sense. But, I think also with youth, I think there's been a great, change in the dynamics of, dealing with the stigma and some of the other things that they've been dealing with. But our youth, now we got social media and some of these other things that are being seen that I think really put a burden on our youth of what they think is life is like and what they think, things are really going on and what the reality is. And so in our work, we've definitely seen a rise and an increase in youth looking for and trying to access services from what we have.
I used to hate when people say somebody is looking for attention. Ain't nothing, man. They just looking for attention.
Yeah.
We really don't know what other people are going through. We love to put our little titles and stigmas on each other. Is it something that someone can do so that won't be said? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you go on social media and you see somebody constantly posting something's wrong or something's wrong with their life or something. How do you approach that person? Especially if you don't know them.
I think, well, go ahead, Kirk. Like you got some prophetic. I think a lot of times it's really, putting information out there for help. Like you said, you got a lot of people who will say, they doing it for clout or just trying to get attention or trying to get likes. But like you say, we never know what somebody's going through. Yeah. But I think, there are times when you just got to just put information out there. Here's some information when you reach out for help, right? Here's a number that you can call. Right. That's a lot of times what we do is just, folks will make a comment, they'll put a post. All right, here's a number that you can access. It's free and it's confidential. Because again, people reach out in different ways, especially our youth who use, texting and social media really to communicate. Which is one of the reasons why we've changed a lot of our ways to reach out is through text, because that's how they talk. You can be in the same room with a kid and they'll text you instead of talking to you. Yeah. And so, we just try to be creative, but I think you got to meet them where they are. And, if they on social media sharing the information, I think we got to communicate to them in that way so they basically understand. Kirk, I'm not sure what you think.
No, I certainly agree. I also think that there's just like a lot of ignorance out there. And it's very easy to talk about someone else's situation when you're kind of not prioritizing your own. And I think that it's unfortunate, but I do think that for those young people who are on social media, mental health has really, really changed over the past decade with social media. Like I follow a lot of great therapists and clinicians who have resource pages in their bios, or they have things pinned where you can get access, or you can call this number, or even if it's just promoting the 988 line, things like that, where it's like a constant reminder that you can get help, you can get assistance. There's always, I feel like it then kind of goes into a different argument at that point once we start to get into why people say certain things, and I think that that's just really just embodied by stigma. There are a lot of people that come to therapy and they struggle knowing that they have a diagnosis or whatever and they're working through it, believing that it's actually a real thing, even though they're coming constantly, just still believing that this is actually a real thing. They have to remind themselves at times that this is real. And I often find myself saying, no, depression is real. Yes, you've said it. And yes, you're going through it. Yes, you might be taking medication for it. Yes, you're actually being mindful about it. Yes, you're meditating about it. But I still think that there is that part of it that, a lot of people, just like how mental health has been treated and the power of the stigma, that we kind of don't believe ourselves sometimes that something is wrong. And I think that we tend to want to kind of project our own things onto other people. So you'll find a lot of people saying, oh, there's nothing wrong with you, or you just don't want to go to work, or there's nothing wrong with you, you just don't want to take accountability or whatever. And so I think that just with being intentional about eradicating stigma on mental health, I think will help that out a bit. We'll kind of decrease that, but we'll still have people who just don't want to understand it or don't understand it, or they might even be struggling with it themselves and may not necessarily feel comfortable addressing it.
You think it's an age that's too young for therapy?
I do not. I think that therapy can look different for different age groups.
Gotcha.
I think that like even if a young kid is coming in and just drawing and just being able to have that safe space and to casually talk or to see what's going on in their mind is important. Whether you're playing a game with them or if it may look a little bit different than standard talk therapy, but it's still very effective and it's still helpful.
Now, you guys, talking about therapy, you guys have all different kind of styles, right? All different therapists have different ways about doing how they do their thing, I'm sure. Now, when it comes to matching yourself with a therapist, what are some questions you may want to ask, or what is it that you should be looking for, in your therapist, before it's too late? Like, man, I don't like this person and all that, man.
I think what's important is like what modalities do they practice? What types of therapy do they do? What is like their philosophy on just person-centered, not person-centered? And that basically means like, are we do you come from the that if I do drink, if I do smoke, is that problematic with your organization? Or do you offer just cognitive behavioral therapy? Is it I prefer to have homework, or I prefer to have more time to talk? I prefer to lay down on the couch and do the standard Freud thing, with psychoanalysis. Like what ways do you provide therapy? And every therapist has their own specialization. And so I think that just checking in there is a big one. But I also think, though, when it comes down to just matching, your energy, sometimes you can go in there and they have all the right techniques, but you may not necessarily feel a connection. And it's okay. Like if you don't wish to proceed with it, I look at it and liken it, especially, us being African American, like going to a barber, a new barber. Like it's not easy to just simply go to one. It takes time. It builds a relationship, and once you do it, it's special. And so I think that likewise, it's kind of similar in that. So I think that based on your own impression that you're getting, and how comfortable you feel sharing with that person, and then figuring out like what it is that how they lead their practice, what's their philosophy, and how they do therapy, I think matters quite a bit.
Do you think race and color play a part on the person you should pick as therapist? Because somebody that's black will say, well, a white guy don't know what black men go through. You know what I mean? Like it'll be that. Do you think that's a problem?
It comes up. I don't think that it's a problem. I think that especially when it comes down to African Americans in mental health, we haven't seen many people that look like us sitting behind that chair. We just haven't, or sitting behind that desk.
Right.
And so a lot of times when, some of the feedback that I've gotten is that like, I want to have a therapist where I don't have to explain certain African American nuances,
right,
that may be very unclear to someone who isn't African American. And I think that that's fair. I think that is real. That's a real experience. So like, and it's very subtle, but I mean, like, it does matter, being able to, like, if you feel like you're trying to get genuine feedback, but you feel like your therapist that doesn't understand you, or that your therapist is kind of judging you for certain decisions, or judging you on something that in our culture may seem very normal, that can be very frustrating and essentially make them not want to go back. It doesn't happen with everybody. Not every African American client, is only looking for African American therapists, but it does come up quite a bit.
It's about relationship, right? Who you have that connection with, and you can, feel open and having that conversation with. I think too, I mean, I've had a white woman, I've had a, African-American man and woman. I think, I've had the gamut, but until you really find that one that you can connect to and kind of open up to, it's a cycle. All right. And you keep trying until you find that right one.
All right, Brian, we had a question from Sharice. Want to know, how do we help men understand and begin uncovering their traumas that don't consider they have experienced trauma because it was common in their neighborhood, friends group, family, etc.? It being divorce, gun violence, single parent household, food poverty, everything us black men went through growing up.
Yeah.
Everything.
Normalizing bad behavior, right? I've heard something about that. Normalizing bad behavior or conditioning to bad behavior.
Yeah, I think you acted out, right? Coming from Baltimore City, right, and seeing all these things that whether it's in school and you're like young lady mentioned, and whether it's divorce and violence in the neighborhood and everything else, right? Those things are trauma that builds up in you as you from a little boy to a teenager to an adult, and you act those things out, right? And they kind of become aggression. I know, because similarly, that's those things that happen to me. You become angry in elementary school, you're getting suspended, and you fighting, and same thing through middle school and high school until you kind of get that help. But I think for me, it's kind of again, understanding what that was, being able to put words to it. Of like, I've seen some things and dealt with some things, right? Those were some traumatic experiences to be able to see, coming from Baltimore City, and right, just to be able to articulate that and talk about it. But I think you got to find the right space to be able to do that, for somebody to be able to listen to you, that and understand and really ask those questions about it, because other than that, you carrying those things through. And I think I'm one of those that carry those things through until late 30s before you understood particularly what it was.
Yeah. I also think in that question, it's important that that the person, that man understands it as a problem and is kind of recognizing that it's a problem. It's very difficult for someone to go to therapy because your partner or your spouse or whoever has identified it for you, that this is a problem or that you went through trauma. And so I think at first it starts as a conversation. Do you see anything that may have been unusual about this or that, but kind of presenting it in a way of like, hey, this is trauma. How do we help them to see it as trauma? It's very difficult when they don't perceive it as that. And that kind of requires a bit more like delicacy in terms of having a bit more conversation, because we sometimes want to we see a problem, go to therapy. We see a problem, get referred. And sometimes it doesn't happen like that. It's, sometimes it is baby steps. Sometimes it's becoming aware. And so as you become aware of it, you then say, okay, now I'm processing this. I know better. I think maybe I want to do this, or I process this. I don't perceive this as a problem, but I'll go to therapy because my wife told me to, or my girlfriend told me to, or whatever. Then at that point, that relationship between therapist and person, can't work out because it's not a genuine thing. Right. And so I think that it's important that if we are supporting somebody else, like you were saying, Porkchop, like with your wife being very supportive of you in, going and pursuing therapy, like there had to be some acknowledgement that you had that said, hey, yeah, I resonate with this. Yeah. But if they don't, then it's going to be very challenging for them to kind of see it as something serious. Now, if there is, if it's in, kind of rooted in stigma and they feel ashamed, then I think that what Quinton was saying in terms of like creating that safe space for them, I think is really, really important to get them to that point. But I think that person has to really acknowledge that this is something that they consider to be trauma and that they're willing to address in therapy for themselves.
Yeah,
I think that's such a tough thing. That's so hard. I think that's such a hard thing. That's such a hard thing for somebody to kind of like self-recognize that, especially in certain environments that we grow up in. That is, it's just normal.
Yeah.
It's tough.
It's like tough. You said, yeah, normal and right. And then how do you kind of distinguish that, this doesn't happen everywhere.
Right.
And you shouldn't be dealing.
Wasted Wellness says old people are set in their ways, which we are. It's their age when you give
Talk
up
about
or you
yourself.
feel old. Like, yeah, like to be honest with ourselves, and y'all two are doctors, y'all in the business. Do you see 80, 70-year-old men getting therapy?
That's got to be low numbers. Them brothers ain't they ain't budget.
I mean, I'm no doctor, but I have seen some older clients. I don't think that I've seen any. I mean, but I'm still in the thick of it. Not trying to say that it can't happen. I think that anyone who is willing to try to explore like their own trauma, their own experiences, or to come to a level of awareness, I think therapy could help. I think some of the challenges are, in which I've seen quite a bit, are like when older clients come in and they find that therapists are significantly younger than them, and then it's like, well, what can this young person tell me? Yeah. And that's a struggle. And I think that goes back into finding someone that you kind of resonate with. I don't see many of it, but I don't think that it can't be done. And I think that there are a lot of therapists that welcome that. I haven't had any 80 or older clients, but anyone that fits that bill, I think that is great that is looking to get that awareness and looking to get that therapy. I think that it's totally worth it.
Because you still got a lot of life to live,
That's right. Yeah.
Who says you're gonna pass away soon?
And you still need that mind to work right. Okay.
That's right.
100%. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, welcome to our Minorities and Mental Health series. Tonight, I should say this evening. It's all about men's health awareness. We have good brothers in the building with us tonight, man. Quinton Askew from 211 Maryland, Kirk Baltimore from Sheppard Pratt. And again, we are encouraging you to share, ask questions, jump on in. And as soon as I said that, Tracy come up with a question, which she said, I wish we had more men who are in touch with their feelings instead of letting their ego shine. I think that's just a time thing. I
feel like that's more than just men. That's people.
Yeah.
We've been conditioned that way. Yeah.
Maybe I always make sure a little more outwardly, But I think you said that's just general with anybody.
Yeah.
What do y'all have to tell a black man that's watching right now? One of our brothers is watching. They're a little bit scared. They got a question, don't want to answer it. What can you tell them to do right now?
There's this tagline that we folks use with 988 that says, you're not alone, right? And so I think, with that tag, just us knowing that there's somebody else there, right? That's probably dealing with the same thing that you are, that, you're not alone in that situation, whatever you're dealing with, that help is out there, right? You got people like Kirk that's there that can understand and speak the language. You got you guys there that's at the radio in the community that folks know, but that that you're just not alone. And I think it's really that first step is just reaching out for help, and using one of these resources that you have, but just really understanding that you're not alone. And that may not be a family member or someone else, but there is someone out there that really cares and helps.
Yeah. And I think anything new can be very scary. I think that anything. I mean, like if you, get a colonoscopy for the first time, because you're at that age too, like that's terrifying. Or
I got mine's coming, son.
So like, but these are all things that are necessary, and that like I feel like with anything that is if anything is worth it, your peace of mind is worth it. Your ability to be able to feel free and to feel lighter, just being, just from sharing your experience is worth it. And I think that just because it's new and just because it's different, it doesn't necessarily have to mean it's wrong, or that you have to kind of, allow like a negative connotation to come around that. Like this is something that's very real, that impacts a lot of people. And then also, there's a lot of empirical research out there. This is not just something that is just coming out of someone's head. Like this is a very real thing, and I think that it's okay to just to be open with that.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy. She said it's not just a man thing. I personally am going through it. I'm seeking help, so it's okay if you do too. I'm here with you, and that's a good point. And speaking of advice too, talk about the people you love, people you care about. You got a homeboy, you got a best friend, you got a partner that you say, something, they need something else. They need to maybe speak to somebody, but they're, not adamant about it. What advice, what tips, what can you recommend they do? Because you don't want that situation to get worse between them. You're trying to push something on.
Yeah, they push you off.
Right. So what kind of advice can we give those folks who are, care about somebody that they think needs a little bit of help?
Just letting folks know that
call
you're there.
211-988. Tell them, call 211-988.
That's it. When you don't know, you know who to call. Just reach out. Especially, because these numbers are confidential, right? So we don't know who you are. We don't ask who you are, where you live, or any of those types of things. It's really just somebody there to listen, somebody caring on the other line. And so I think those instances, like you said, when you want to remain anonymous, and you just don't know, use these 3-digit numbers, because again, it's somebody that won't ask any questions, but just how can we help? And I think that's one of the easiest things to do. But when you're ready, right? And I think just we're here when you're ready.
Floyd want to know, is group therapy with folk of the same similar issue a good idea? I guess that's for you, Kirk. Is it? Do y'all have a lot of group therapies at Sheppard Pratt?
Yeah, so we do. We have groups. I think that groups are very helpful. They're usually themed around very similar things.
Right.
So they're very helpful. And I mean, it's an additional resource, kind of like you were saying earlier, Porkchop, are there any other resources that you can do, going to therapy and having a spiritual advisor? Groups are very helpful. Sometimes they're a little bit hard to come across, but they can be very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we go to the gym to work on our body, but going to therapy is going to the gym for your mind. So if you go work out all the time, you need to go to therapy all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a little challenging in that when it comes down, for instance, if you're working out together and you may be working on different things, mm-hmm. and that's fine, but kind of having that camaraderie is maybe encouraging for someone. But where it gets a little challenging is that sometimes in our own journeys, it's really not geared up for it to be. Therapy is very confidential and very, very, very private, and so you might not necessarily find a lot of them just because of the fact that everybody's situation is unique. They may be okay with having some information out there, but they don't want a whole lot, and so those things sometimes it can be a little challenging. But I still think that it's worth it when you have some that are available.
Yeah, and speaking of that, confidentiality, especially utilizing 988, right? You can call or you can text. They even have chat, right? 988lifeline.org. And so, even if you don't want to talk to somebody on the phone, you can text, right? And still talk to a live person. You can chat and still talk to someone, through your laptop if you choose to. But, there are many ways to connect with somebody. And confidence and confidentiality.
Hey, I love it, man. I love it. I know we only have a few minutes left. I want to make sure that you guys give out all your contact information. If we have resources available for our listeners, please share that, because I know this will be on the internets for a little while. So we want to make sure that whoever watches this can get the necessary contact info and reach out if necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely for anyone who definitely needs somebody to talk to in crisis or health, just really dial 988. 211 is there, available anytime, again, 24/7. We also have another initiative that could be accessed called Health Check, where you can text Health Check to 211-631, and you can schedule a weekly appointment for someone just to call and check up on you anytime that you want. Every week, we'll just call and say, hey, how you doing? Do you need any help? If you're okay, we'll hang up and call back the next week. So just text Health Check to 211-631, and we can connect with somebody every week.
That's what's up.
Yeah. And in terms of, it's can be very challenging if you're making the decisions that you want to learn more about mental health, or where you can find resources. Sheppard Pratt also has a call center as well to just gain resources for mental health, like where you can get therapy and stuff like that. And that phone number, and I can try to put it in the chat as well, is 410-938-5000. Of course, if anyone is in crisis, like Quinton had already mentioned, like the 988 suicide hotline. And then, of course, anything Sheppard Pratt related, sheppardpratt.org. So I can put some of that stuff in the chat as well.
No, appreciate you, Kirk. Appreciate you, Q. I know
so
for me, yeah, man. I know for me, I know that physical education has been a part of our makeup from coming into this world. They teach you how to run, everything, catch, jump, be fit, play all the time. But they definitely don't address a lot of mental health issues, man. And I'm grateful that, you brothers are on the job, helping so many in our community. And I know we are not seeing any effects, as we sit here together having this conversation, but it helps somebody today. And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. The gym, everything you said in the gym, what really bothered me in the gym, to go on a high note, I never got to climb that rope, yo. There's something about that one activity in the gym.
Couldn't do it.
Look at it. Have any of y'all ever got to the top?
Never tried. No, I knew my limitations.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. Minority Mental Health, a virtual series, all about the community. Big shout out to Radio 1 for putting this together. Big shout out to 211 Sheppard Pratt for making all of this possible. And let's continue to have these conversations, fellas. I can't wait for the next one. I'm definitely looking forward to it.
It's gonna be at Kirk House, because he's gonna go come over there to Kirk House.
Y'all are all welcome. Y'all are all welcome.
Yes. Thank y'all
Sounds
so
Appreciate it,
much.
guys. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen. Have a great evening. Have a great evening.